What's up, y'all? Jared Sandler here with you for a World Series preview. The Dodgers, the Rays, coast versus coast, two best records in the regular season. You have a 16-team playoff, but the top two seeds end up emerging to meet in the middle at Globe Life Field here for the World Series. So going to go over a few things to consider before this series starts tonight. Just quickly, a lot of people talking about the local tie of Clayton Kershaw. There are obviously a number of players on both sides, a number of people, part of the organizations on both sides with a local tie of some sort. Another person who I think should get some recognition, the president of baseball operations for the Tampa Bay Rays, Matt Silverman, Dallas. Grew up, born, raised, grew up in Dallas before he went off to college. So a cool local tie there. But let's get to the other local tie that people are talking about, the one that they're talking about most. It's Clayton Kershaw. Before we get into the team versus team matchup, to me, the most significant individual storyline is the one surrounding Clayton Kershaw. Here's what we know about Clayton Kershaw. Arguably the best pitcher of his era. Arguably the best pitcher of all time. Not arguable, indisputably one of the best pitchers of all time. The numbers are just too many numbers. The depth of numbers that back that up, that we're watching one of the all-time greats. It's just there's too much to ignore. What we also know is that he's missing postseason success. The Dodgers haven't won a World Series during his time, and maybe in spite of his struggles, a World Series would change the narrative. But the Dodgers have not only not won a World Series, but he's pitched some significant games for the Dodgers. And it hasn't worked out for one reason or another. In Kershaw's career, his postseason ERA is 4.31. His regular season career ERA is 2.43. I mean, it's almost twice as high, which, that's pretty significant. I'm hoping, as a Clayton Kershaw fan, that this is the postseason. This is the World Series, I should say, because so far in the postseason, he's made 3 starts. 2 of them have been good. One's been great. One's been okay. One not so great. I'm hoping this is the World Series that changes the narrative. I'm hoping that he pitches really well in the World Series, and I hope that it's dominant enough or good enough to where we can look and say, no, he has stepped up and pitched in big games. Do I really care who wins the World Series personally? I don't know that I've got a strong rooting interest. I think there are reasons to root for both sides, but I think the Clayton Kershaw angle is certainly one to consider because I think if he pitches well and they win the World Series, that could change that narrative. And knowing people who know Clayton Kershaw, this is all he really cares about at this point in his career is getting that elusive World Series. They've been so close. But I think for the national conversation, the narrative, not that he cares about that, but the reality is, as we continue to talk about Clayton Kershaw's career, if he can put together 2 really good starts, that would certainly go a long way in maybe impacting the narrative more favorably. And the reason I bring this up is I think this could very well be his last chance to right this ship. I don't think that it's necessarily the last time a Kershaw team is going to make the playoffs. Don't think it's necessarily going to be the last year in which he starts in the playoffs, but he's starting to deal with some injuries along the way. The back has been an issue for him. He's 32 years old, which is not necessarily ancient, but he's logged over 2,300 career innings. He is at a point where pitchers really start to decline. He is currently viewed as the guy in the Dodgers rotation. Now, is he right now better? Like at this moment, is he better than Walker Buehler? You can debate it. Walker Buehler's stuff right now is certainly better, but Clayton Kershaw is Clayton Kershaw. I think there's a difference when a guy helps to win a World Series when he is one of the dudes versus when he's, a back end guy. And I worry that this might be the last chance Clayton Kershaw pitches in the postseason or in the World Series where he is looked upon as one of the studs. Now, by name, he's always going to be perceived that way, right? And because he is one of these all-time greats, I'm sure that he's going to prove me wrong and he's going to end up being, an elite pitcher for the next 5 years. But the reality is we've got to consider that this could be the last chance. And who knows? I mean, maybe the Dodgers don't get back to a World Series. They've been to 3 out of the last 4, and there's certainly no reason to believe that they're slowing down. but you just never know. Every time could be the last time. So that's going to be a storyline that I'm going to follow, and it starts tonight when he takes the mound here in Game 1. From a team standpoint, this is a great juxtaposition. You got the East Coast Rays, the West Coast Dodgers. You got the big spenders in the Dodgers and the not so big spenders in the Rays. You've got Andrew Friedman, who used to be the GM of the Rays and is now calling the shots for the Dodgers. Big market, little market, great fan base, not so great fan base. There's a lot, historic franchise that's only been around since 1998. So you've got a lot of interesting comparisons here. One thing that they share is that they're both outstanding teams, no matter which team wins, even if one team ends up dominating the other because, the other just hits a bad stretch. These are two very, very good teams. And, of course, Jared, they're in the World Series. Well, no, not every team that makes the World Series do you look at and say, man, they were one of the best teams versus, well, they just got on a run. They went on a run. They got hot. The 2010 Giants and the 2011 Cardinals, the 2010 Giants and 2011 Cardinals, I don't know that those are teams that people were looking at, throughout the play. These are great teams. These are teams that are just, gosh, how does anyone beat them? The Cardinals barely got into the playoffs that year, and I don't like talking about 2011, but for the sake of this argument, the Rays and the Dodgers are the two best teams in baseball. The record suggested as much, and their performance this postseason backs that up. They both have had impact players offensively who have not performed up to snuff. Now, Mookie Betts is hitting 300, and he's got an on-base percentage, I think, around 400 this postseason. No home runs, though. I wouldn't say he's not performing up to snuff the same way that Brandon Lau perhaps hasn't. But I think there's another gear for Mookie Betts, which is kind of scary to think about. The whole Rays offense has really struggled. How did they get to the World Series? Pitching, and defense. But offensively, the Rays have a number of guys who have struggled. The Dodgers probably haven't necessarily been as dominant in the playoffs offensively as they were in the regular season. This is a Dodgers team that led the league in scoring and home runs. They don't swing and miss a lot. They're disciplined. This is one of the best lineups that we've seen in a long, long time. With that said, I still think they've got another gear. Now, Tampa, they've got a lot of big names, whether it's, Brandon Lau or Austin Meadows. Basically, anyone not named Randy Arozarena has probably not performed well offensively for the Rays. Obviously, some exceptions. But they've got a number of guys who, you think that they've got some they've got a little bit of a cold stretch to ward off. The Rays are not a dominant offensive team by any means. They're boomer bust. They're home run reliant. They swing and miss a lot. But they got a lot of guys who have been busting more than they've been booming. Defensively, both teams are outstanding. I think the Rays probably measured out to be a little bit better, statistically speaking, in the regular season. Both these teams are tremendous. Both these teams are at this point in part because of their defense. Certainly Tampa, with their lack of offense against Houston, defense really was amplified in terms of importance, and they answered the call. Whether it's, and Kevin Kiermaier in center field, Willie Adames was outstanding at short, Joey Wendell at third. I mean, you got G-Man Choi at first, who, we don't think of first base a ton in this regard, but man, he made some great plays. For the Dodgers in the outfield, they're second to none with Bellinger in center and Betts in right. There's not a better defensive center and right tandem. And then no matter who they're throwing out in left field, they got quality there. I think depending on Justin Turner's health, they could be a little bit weak at third defensively, but all in all, really, really good defensive team. The pitching. Now, we talked about how the Dodgers or the Rays bats have been struggling. Well, the Dodgers bullpen has been struggling. They have not been lights out. They have not been dominant. Kenley Jansen is not a lockdown closer right now. He started to pitch a little bit better against the Braves at the end of the series, but it's tough to assign the level of dominance to Kenley Jansen that we have over the last few years. Now, Nick Anderson has allowed 5 runs in 7 innings, and he was arguably the best reliever in Major League Baseball coming into this postseason with his performance. But I'd say that his his results have not been as troubling as Kenley Jansen's. The Rays bullpen is remarkable, as you've probably followed along. Kevin Cash is not afraid to go to his bullpen early and very often, and they've got a lot of depth in their bullpen. The Dodgers bullpen a little more susceptible. I think Blake Trinan is going to be a key, a multi-inning reliever who's got back end of the bullpen stuff, but they use him as a fireman in the middle. He's going to be super important. So that's kind of the matchup. I think that, at the end of the day, like I said, these are two great teams. The Dodgers have the edge offensively. It's a push defensively. And I'd say that the rotation favors, or the pitching favors the Rays. The rotation probably slight edge to the Rays. X factors for the Dodgers, Clayton Kershaw and Blake Trinan. X factors for the Rays. Really a bat, right? Any of the, whether it's Brandon Lau or anyone, they need a bat to really step up to partner with Randy or Rosarena. And I'd go with Blake Snell in their rotation as a guy who, Cy Young winner who could really step up in a big way. Ultimately, I think this series goes 7 games. I really do. And I think the Dodgers win this series in 7 games. That's my pick. These two teams are outstanding. I'm really excited to see them go back and forth. That's our World Series preview. I hope you're having a great day.